Hello and welcome to Crime Divers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And join us today as we talk about the case of the caretaker who killed.
Hello and welcome back. I hope everybody's well. Today we have something a little bit different for you, and it's actually Laura who is going to be telling us this story today. So
I know, I'm a bit nervous about this one.
I've just had a thought.
Oh God, what?
I've just thought what we could call it.
What do you mean what we could call it?
We could call it a Laura-sode.
Oh, a Laura-sode. I like that.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll call it a Laura-sode. So welcome back everybody, and I will hand you over to Laura for our first Laura-sode.
Hey! Oh God, now I'm on the spot. Now I've got to come good with it. Yes, but can I just say before I do start, I want to take my hats off to you.
Why?
Because the amount of effort and time that it took me to do this, I've realised how much effort it is. So hats off to you, but it's back to you next week.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's get diving into this one.
Okay, let's go.
So this one's called The Caretaker Who Killed. So for anybody that obviously doesn't know, because you can't know from the title, but this is about the murder of two young girls called Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. I think everybody in the UK will remember at least their names.
Yeah, this was obviously I remember it quite well, which is why this was one that I wanted to cover, because it was something that I'd remembered. And
I remember what happened, but I don't know the details of it. So
well, to be fair, I researching this, I didn't realise, all the details about it. I knew the basics of it,
yeah.
But actually researching it, I was like, wow, I didn't know quite a few bits about it, so it was quite interesting to do it. So hopefully everybody else will find it as interesting as I did. So,
cool.
So here goes. So it was 11:45 on a Sunday, the 4th of August 2002. So we're talking 18 years ago.
God, I didn't even realise it was that long ago now.
I know, it doesn't seem, it is a long time ago, but yeah,
anything in the 2000s doesn't seem that long ago though, does it?
No, not really, no. But anyway, so so it's Sunday the 4th of August 2002 when Jessica Chapman left her home in Brook Street, Soham, and that's in England, town in England. She was on her way to the home of her best friend Holly Wells, and she lived in Red House Gardens. Jessica had just come back from a family holiday to Menorca. She had bought Holly a necklace engraved with the letter H. So obviously she was...
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I don't know, did you do that? I remember buying stuff for friends when I was on holiday. I used to buy them a little something.
Well, I didn't really go abroad until I was 17.
Oh, right, okay.
But I did when I was 17, because that's when we went to Florida, and I brought a couple of things back for my friends.
So she'd arrived at her house, and it was also, they had another friend there called Natalie Parr. All the girls were playing computer games and they were listening to music because there was a family barbecue going on, so obviously she'd been invited around for that, so they were just doing their own thing while all the adults were doing whatever they were doing. So they were just in the room listening to music, and Natalie Parr, she went home.
Right.
She must have left, she went home, so it was just left the two of the girls. So for some reason both the girls decided to change into Man United shirts, so Manchester United football team.
Yeah, well that's the picture that everybody remembers, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a picture that I think everybody would have seen if they've known the case. That's the picture of the two girls, sadly, that you have seen. So the reason that we know this is because Holly's mum had actually taken a picture, which
that was taken actually that day.
Yeah, it was taken that day, and sadly that was the last photo of them taken alive. And that was the photo used in the media, as we just said. So sometime after that, the girls ate some dinner with all the house guests that were around for the barbecue, and then they decided to go back up and play in Holly's room. So at about 6:15 p.m. that night, the girls decided to leave the house as they wanted to go and buy sweets from a vending machine at a local sports centre. I kind of wondered why they went to a local sports centre, not just a shop.
Well, yeah.
Maybe that was close by. I don't think it was particularly far away from them.
Right,
anyway,
okay. So maybe that was closer to their shop.
Yeah. So that was at 6:15. So at about 8 o'clock, Nicola Wells, it's Holly's mum,
Right.
she went up to the girls' room to ask the girls to come and say bye to the guests because everybody was leaving the barbecue, but only to discover that they weren't there. So she searched all round the house, and then with her husband Kevin Wells, they searched the nearby streets. Holly had a curfew of 8:30, and when she didn't show up, Nicola phoned Jessica's house to see if the girls had gone there. Obviously, they discovered they weren't there, and Leslie and Sharon Chapman were also becoming concerned about their daughter's whereabouts. So after frantically searching for their daughters, Holly and Jessica were reported missing by their parents at 9:55 p.m. that night. God. So they must have been pretty
awful.
I mean, I don't know what I would do if I, expected to find like my daughter in a room and she's gone and
I
have
know.
no idea where she is.
That's a parent's worst nightmare.
And I think
that,
at this time as well, I mean, like mobile phones and stuff. Maybe kids of that age, maybe it wasn't such a big thing as it is now.
How old were they again?
They were 10.
Aye.
So
no, they probably didn't have a mobile phone back then.
So it's not even like you could maybe get in touch with them. So it must have been, quite scary.
Well, yeah. I mean, they would have been panicking.
Exactly. So so they were reported missing at 9:55. So police immediately launched a search. Over 400 officers were assigned to the search for the girls, and they were assisted by hundreds of volunteers, and later the United States Air Force who were stationed nearby. So there was actually a base nearby.
All right.
So they obviously helped with the search as well. So the police released the photo of the two girls in the Man United shirts, which is the one that it's quite famous that they would have seen all over. And both parents were adamant the girls would not talk to strangers, as they had been taught since early childhood, and also the head teacher of the girls' school supported this, as the possible danger from strangers was something that they'd impressed upon the children from an early age at the school.
Right.
So
well, that's good. That
done that. So the police suspected the girls had been kidnapped at this point.
Right.
And they actually questioned every registered sex offender in Cambridgeshire and Lincolnshire, which was about 260 people they actually questioned.
That's scary. That's quite a lot.
That is quite a lot. They were actually all eliminated from the inquiry. And police also investigated the possibility that they'd actually arranged to meet someone, or both had been contacted through an online chat room. But that theory was soon discredited. So discounted. They didn't really go anywhere with that one. So that was the day of the disappearance. So we then go to the 8th of August, which is actually 4 days after their disappearance, that CCTV footage of the girls was released to the public, and that actually showed them arriving at the local sports centre. So that's how we know they actually went to the sports centre, and that was at 6:28 p.m. And they actually did a televised reconstruction with, and both parents agreed to an interview, and that was broadcast on the 12th of August. So, sightings. There was some sightings, or possible sightings. So several members of the public reported sightings in the early days. Obviously, I didn't go into detail on every one of them because some of them weren't really very significant. Right. But there was one in particular, was a guy called Mark Tuck, and he had driven past the girls at about 6:30 on the 4th of August. His attention had been drawn to the fact that the girls were wearing the Man United shirts. Right. And that was causing him to remark to his wife, Lucy, quote, "Look, there's two little Beckhams over there." Oh. So for anybody that doesn't know, David Beckham is a big, massive Man United player. So that's why the reference to Beckham was there. So that was apart from there was a few other sightings, but let's say they weren't really anything significant, so I didn't really go into detail with them. But there was a man called Ian Huntley, who was 28, and he claimed to have spoken to the girls just before their disappearance on his doorstep.
On his doorstep? On
his doorstep, yes.
Well, so they actually went to his door?
Well, I think that his house must have passed their route home.
Oh, right.
So you'll find out later why he was on his doorstep. At first I was like, why was he on his doorstep?
Yeah.
But you find out later just why he said he was on his doorstep.
Right, okay.
But according to Huntley, Holly and Jessica had asked him if his partner, who was a woman called Maxine Carr, had been successful in her recent application for a teaching assistant job at their school. So they obviously knew his partner, and she'd applied for a teaching assistant job at the school. Right. He was actually the caretaker
at their
nearby
school?
college.
Oh, yeah. Not at their school?
No, not at their school, at nearby college. So when he said she wasn't there, one of the girls said, "Oh,
can you not read your own writing?"
No. No, I think she wasn't there. The girls said that they were sorry, then they headed off. So I'm not sure she actually got the job. I haven't written that properly, but I don't think she actually got it. Clearly, I can't read my own writing. Anyway, police were actually a bit suspicious of his account, so his house was actually searched by just a single police officer. So just not even, because normally, like when I've heard of searches, that they would do. Well, you'd have a few people come in the house, wouldn't you?
I thought you would have to have more than one, so that the police, just so that the police can't make anything up, or I don't know, like plant evidence or anything like that, like just for their own backs, to cover their own backs, really.
No, it was by a single police officer search on the 5th of August. So nothing incriminating was actually found on this date. The police officer did notice a number of clothing items up on the washing line, despite the fact that it had been raining. Which, to be fair, you could have wondered why it's got washing out when it's been raining.
Well, yeah, that's
a bit dumb, but
maybe he just left it out. I've done it before.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it might be nothing, but for some reason the police officer sort of thought that was significant.
Okay.
But apparently Huntley had told the officer that there had been a flood in the dining room, where there had actually been extensive cleaning done. You could see it had been really cleaned up. But the police officer was actually unconvinced by Huntley's claims, and Huntley seemed quite agitated, so he actually became quite a strong suspect at this point.
Right.
So, I mean, for everybody that knows, I mean, Ian Huntley's obviously quite a big thing to do this, so I'm going to give a bit of background on him. So we'll come away from the murder, but that's basically the sort of, leading up to the fact that he disappeared. But there's a bit of background on Huntley.
Okay.
So, his name was Ian Kevin Huntley, and he was born in Grimsby on the 31st of January 1974. He was an asthma sufferer. He was actually bullied at school, and at 13 he had to change schools because of this. He left school in 1990 and he went directly into employment. This is where it gets a bit not so good. So he developed an interest into young girls.
Oh, like really young girls?
Well, it doesn't say like young, but I mean certainly not of a legal age, shall we say.
Yeah. Minors.
Yeah, that's the word. So he was seen out with like 13-year-olds when he was 18. So he was 18 at the time when he was seen out with 13-year-olds.
That's not good.
And actually in December 1994, Huntley met 18-year-old Claire Evans, and they got married within weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
At 18?
Yeah.
Was she 18 as well?
She was 18 as well, yeah. And they got married in December 1994. No, sorry, they met in December 1994 and they were married within weeks, so yeah. But
I'm assuming that didn't work out then.
Well, no, it was because Claire left Huntley within days of the wedding. And here's
within days she left him?
Here's where it gets even worse, is actually she got with his brother.
Oh, she sounds lovely.
Yeah, so he thought, well, up yours, so he didn't actually grant her a divorce until 1999. So bear in mind they got married, well, they said they got together in 1994, so I'm assuming they maybe got married early 95.
Right.
So for 4 years, he didn't grant a divorce purely because she got with his brother.
Well, I don't blame him for that.
I know, fair enough.
That's so bad.
I know.
And like, what kind of person is his brother?
Well, yeah,
to do that.
Sadly, I didn't, find anything out.
No, that's probably another story. But I mean, who done that to their brother?
I know exactly. But anyway, so Huntley then began moving around from flat to flat and job to job. He had lots of relationships, and one was actually with a 15-year-old girl who he fathered a daughter with in 1998.
Oh, for God's sake!
Now, as a side note, the girl whose daughter is called Samantha Bryan, her mum mustn't have told her about him.
Right.
Because there was an interview, obviously, after all this happened, and she revealed that she'd accidentally discovered the identity of her biological father while working on a school project when she was 14. So she accidentally found out that he was her dad. So her mother must have never told
Imagine
her.
Finding out like that. What a shame.
And this was actually, when we knew a lot more about him then. So probably she wasn't best pleased to probably find out that he was her dad.
No, that'd be horrible.
Yeah, I know. But yeah. So I don't think, I'm not sure what kind of contact she's actually had with him.
I wouldn't want any contact with him.
Yeah, definitely not. Anyway, so an inquiry revealed between 1995 and 2001 that Huntley actually had sexual contact with 11 underage girls ranging between the ages of 11 and 17 years old. I mean, obviously, the 17-year-olds, yes, they would have been of legal age, I guess. But
11 and... Oh,
yeah. No. I know. appeared in court in 1998, in the January 1998, charged with robbing a neighbour's house, and he was also charged in May 1998 with rape of an 18-year-old girl in Grimsby.
Ugh.
But neither case proceeded any further due to the lack of evidence, but the rape allegation tainted him. So he was never actually...
So he never got convicted of any sexual...
No, even though there seems to be a lot of evidence here, like from what I read, but there was not enough to convict him of anything. So
that's strange though, to have all that, and especially like with underage.
Which is why clearly he was able to get this job as a caretaker.
Well, yeah, because
it wasn't on his record.
Yeah, it wasn't on his record.
You know, he did manage to get.
But there's no way should he have been a caretaker.
Exactly, not from that. So anyway, so in February 1999, he met a woman called Maxine Carr, who was 22.
Right. Now, but at least she was legal.
Yes, exactly. But people might be familiar with her name because she becomes quite a big part of the story as well. So they met in a nightclub, and they moved in together after 4 weeks.
They like to do things quick.
Yes. So the relationship wasn't always good, with many bad arguments, but they did stick together. And in 2001, they moved to the town of Littleport, where Huntley took a job at a local centre as a manager of a team of caretakers. Team of caretakers. So he was a manager there at this centre.
Right.
And then in September 2002, my God, I cannot talk.
Right. Okay. Can we just I'm just going home.
Yeah. Sorry. So in September 2001, he applied for a caretaker job at a local college. And in November 2001, despite his history of sexual contact with minors, he got the job.
Yes.
So there you go. And Carr was employed as a teaching assistant at the local primary school.
Right.
So anyway, we'll go back to the investigation now.
Right.
Enough about him.
So that was just a wee bit background.
Yeah, just a wee bit background, just to give you the kind of person that he was, really, because we're going to obviously see a bit more about him. So yeah, I just wanted to maybe give you an indication of, maybe how he's evolved into what.
It's always good to have a bit of background. Yeah. I usually do a bit of background as well.
So I thought that was quite interesting. So yeah, so let's go back to the investigation.
Right, okay.
So a day after the police had visited Huntley's house, so that was the 5th of August, so this is the 6th of August, Huntley drove from Soham to Grimsby to pick up Maxine Carr. A neighbour of Carr's mother had observed the couple standing at the rear of the vehicle with the boot open. According to the neighbour, a pale and shaken Huntley simply gazed into the boot for several moments while Carr stood alongside him, her head bowed, weeping. Huntley became aware of the neighbour and he abruptly closed the boot. So obviously something wasn't right there.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
So by now, obviously, the investigation's of course going on. So of course the media are kicking around. They're interviewing people. They're obviously wanting to see if they can get any leads on what's happened to these 2 girls. Mm-hmm. So in the weeks following the girls' disappearance, Huntley actually reluctantly granted several TV interviews, including Sky News and BBC Look East. He spoke about the general shock in the local community and his apparent dismay at being the last individual to see the girls alive. So he had basically said that he had seen them, so they now had decided that he probably was the last person to see them alive.
Right. I vaguely remember seeing him,
Yeah, well, I remember seeing him on the TV.
Yeah, I can vaguely remember what it looks like as well.
Yeah, because at this point, like I said, they were just going around, I think, interviewing just, people in the community just to get their... opinion.
Yeah, they do that though, don't they? Yeah.
Reaction of what's going on. So they've obviously, he's basically said that he was the last person to see him. So of course they want to speak to the last person that's seen him alive. So he claimed to be holding on to a glimmer of hope that the girls would be found. And Huntley also made efforts with the police, asking how the investigation was going, how long DNA could survive.
So he actively put himself.
Yeah, basically.
That's that kind of reminds me of Mary Bell. Mm-hmm. Remember we were talking about that they kind of seem to put themselves forward in the sort of limelight kind of thing.
I don't know if it's that to kind of deter them from thinking that it's got anything to do with them. Or
it does, because you would think that if you've done something that bad, you would be trying to keep away from the police and the media and all that kind of thing.
So I was like, well, that was a dumbass move. But anyway, Carr, she was also interviewed by the press as well, and she actually backed up Huntley's claims that obviously he he'd been the last ones to see him, and they'd come to the house to see if she was there and stuff.
So was she? Well, he claimed that they'd seen him on his doorstep.
Yeah.
Was she there, Maxine Carr? Or
said,
are you getting to that?
Yeah, he said that she was in the bath,
right?
So they obviously couldn't speak to her. But yeah, she said she'd been in a bath, and she said, this was a quote, "I only wished I had asked them where they were going. If only we knew then what we knew now, then we could have stopped them or done something about it." End quote.
Right.
So
they're acting all caring and...
Yeah, basically, yeah. So all caring, like wish they'd done something. So by the second week, Huntley had begun to lose weight, and he vividly displayed symptoms of insomnia. To one officer, he begged the question, quote, "Do you think I've done it?"
Really?
End quote. Yes.
Okay.
I was the last person to see them before... I've just totally said alive. I was the last person to see them before he began to cry, and he actually ended up being prescribed antidepressants. So he basically started to lose his shit.
Yeah, it sounds like a guilty man.
Yeah, basically,
and he's not handling it very well.
Exactly. So I'm going to take you back to the obviously the night of the girl's disappearance.
Mm-hmm.
Just so that because obviously we do know now what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened? So after the girls had bought their sweets at the local sports centre, they had started to walk back home. So they passed Ian Huntley's house, where he lured the girls into his house, stating that his girlfriend Maxine Carr was also in the house. We now know she was actually visiting her mother in Grimsby on this date, so
right.
she actually wasn't there.
She wasn't there, right.
So basically we know that she lied to the media, because she said that she was there,
yeah.
she was in the bath, and he obviously said that she was there to the girls, so that because they obviously knew.
I actually thought she was involved. So she wasn't. She was just basically lying,
basically she
tried to give him like a sort of alibi. Yeah, right.
So it turns out that she wasn't actually there, because if you remember, I told you that Ian Huntley actually went to pick her up in Grimsby, so clearly she wasn't there.
Yeah.
But he had said to the media that she was, and,
right.
And actually, now we know to the girls, they thought she was in the house as well.
Right.
But yeah, so we know that. So the precise chain of events to occur after the girls entered Huntley and Carr's house are actually unknown, so we don't know exactly what happened after they went into the house.
Okay.
Although investigators do believe sections of Huntley's claims in initial interviews granted to the media prior to his arrest, such as that he had been cleaning his dog at the time of the girl's passing, so that's probably why he was out on the doorstep, because they reckon that he was cleaning his dog.
Okay.
And that one of the girls had actually been suffering from a mild nosebleed may have actually been true. So he told that to the media and stuff, that's when he'd seen the girls, that's, he should have had a nosebleed, and
right.
He'd been out cleaning his dog. So some of that they do actually think might have been accurate what he'd said.
Okay.
Excuse me. So the police were getting suspicious, obviously. So the police suspicions. On the 16th of August, 12 days after the girl's disappearance, Huntley and Carr were both questioned. So they weren't arrested at this point. They were just questioned. And they were both questioned for around 7 hours, separately.
Mm-hmm.
Each provided formal witness statements before being placed in a safe house. I couldn't really understand why they were placed in a safe house. I did try to Google to find out why they were put in a safe house, but I couldn't find an answer, to be honest, why they were placed in a safe house.
Do you think did people did people know that they were getting questioned? So
at this point, I'm not sure how widely known it was that the police were suspicious of them, because I think they were still being treated as witnesses at this point.
So I just thought maybe if the public knew they were being questioned, then maybe it was for their safety.
It possibly was, but I couldn't find any definitive answer to tell me why that. So, but for some reason, they were placed in separate safe houses as well. They weren't obviously together.
Right.
So by this date, police had received information from several residents in Grimsby who had recognised Huntley. They had told police about the accusations of rape that he'd had in his past, because they'd obviously known about that.
Yeah.
And they basically contacted police to tell that. Other individuals recalled that Carr had been socialising with friends in Grimsby Town Centre on the night that the girls disappeared. So again, she's had told basically that she was with him, which clearly she wasn't. Well,
that's a bit stupid. Like if you actually got witnesses and you've actually been out, you know that people are going to have seen you, and yet you're trying to say that you were with him. That's just stupid.
I know. So it basically contradicted Carr's interview, which she gave to the media, because like she had given an interview to the media, and she had said she had been with Huntley. Also, while talking about Holly, she actually raised some suspicions to the TV journalist by saying, quote, "That's the kind of girl she was," end quote. Which, as she was talking about in the past tense, she knew she was dead. So she obviously knew at this point, which we do know she obviously clearly did know she was dead. But the way she spoke that way to the media,
she doesn't sound the brightest.
To be honest, the pictures that I've seen of her, she doesn't look particularly. Not that she looks bad or anything, but she doesn't look the brightest, I would say. Just from a picture, you could sort of maybe see she was maybe a bit stupid or.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you'll put some pictures up on the. Yeah. We'll put some pictures up of them on.
Yeah, I can't actually think what she looks like.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say she looked like the brightest tool in the box.
Okay.
Or the sharpest tool in the box. That's the right word, isn't it? Anyway, so the same evening that the Huntley and Carr were being questioned, police conducted another search of Huntley and Carr's property, and they also conducted a search of the grounds of the Soham Village College, which is where Huntley worked as the senior caretaker. The couple remained under police watch at separate locations. So each room in Huntley's house had been cleaned, they could see that. Mm-hmm. And the search located items that were of major importance. Although the evidence wasn't made public at the time, the items recovered from the college grounds included items of clothing. The items of clothing the girls had been wearing when they were last seen. So now you're thinking, oh yeah, this is not great. And that included their charred and cut Man United shirts, which were recovered from a bin.
Charred, as in burnt?
As in burnt, yeah. Right. So they were recovered from a bin within a hangar at Huntley's place of work. So at the college, that's where they'd found those. Oh, God. So that doesn't sound good. Fibres recovered upon these items of clothing proved to be a precise match to samples retrieved from both Huntley's body, his clothing, his house, and his fingerprints were actually recovered from the bin as well. Oh. So
there's no hope for him then, is there?
Obviously no hope for him. Huntley's car was also subject to a detailed examination, and that it revealed the car had been recently cleaned. Traces of a distinctive mixture of brick dust, chalk and concrete of precisely the same type used to pave the road leading to where the girls' bodies were eventually found.
Right.
And that they would be discovered around the wheel arches and upon and around the pedals. And also a cover from the rear seat was missing, and the lining of the boot had recently been removed and replaced with an ill-fitting section of household carpet. So you can clearly see from the car it's been totally cleaned up, but, because we now know that the girls' bodies were put in.
So is that what they were crying at?
Yeah, so I think that's probably must have been what had happened, is that I'm assuming that Huntley's had the girls' bodies in the car, right? Showed Maxine Carr.
I thought that at the time, but I thought, I'll just wait.
I think that's clearly what had happened. So that's clearly how she's then discovered what he's done. Yeah. And she's been upset about it. Right. But clearly, she must have loved the guy, because she's then lied for him.
I'm sorry,
and got herself in trouble in the process.
No matter how much I love somebody, if they've killed two little girls, then I'm not sticking up for them.
Well, exactly. So this takes us to the arrest. Mm-hmm. So having discovered the clothes at the college, police decided to arrest Huntley and Carr. Both were arrested on suspicion of abduction and murder at 4:30 in the morning on the 17th of August. During initial questioning, Huntley refused to answer questions and appeared quite evasive. Confused and emotionally detached, occasionally drooling in an effort to pretend that he had symptoms of mental illness. Police had to initially refer him to undergo an extensive psychological evaluation, but it was later shown that he wasn't insane or anything like that. He basically was doing it to try and to get himself out of a bit more trouble, I guess. But when Carr was interviewed, she quickly confessed to detectives that she had lied about her whereabouts and her partner's actions on August the 4th. As shortly before she had returned to Soham from Grimsby, 3 days later, Huntley had claimed to her in a phone call to have seen the two girls shortly before their disappearance, admitting, quote, "The thing is, Maxine, they came into our house," unquote. So he had admitted to her that he'd seen them in a phone call. So at that point, she obviously didn't know that they were dead. I think she just thought that he'd seen them.
Yeah.
And obviously they came into her house. So I don't know, maybe she would have been asking more questions why were they in the house.
Yeah, I'd be like, why we got 2 little girls in the house?
Yeah, exactly. According to Carr, Huntley then told her the girls had entered the house so that Holly could stop her nosebleed, which she claimed previously. He then said Jessica had sat on their bed to help before both the girls had left. So that was what he told her on the phone call.
But sat on their bed?
Yeah.
So why were they in the bedroom?
Well, exactly. I mean, even if she had a nosebleed, I mean...
You would either take her
to... Or the kitchen.
The kitchen or the bathroom, maybe, but...
Yeah.
Unless it was the bathroom and she went and sat in the bedroom.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Again, we don't really know why that was the case. We don't know the exact events that did occur in the house. But that's basically what he told Maxine Carr on a phone call that had happened. Huntley then voiced concerns to her that he might be falsely accused of being involved, as had... because of the claim they had previously been falsely accused of rape back in 1998. So he thought because he'd had been accused of stuff before, he was going to get accused this time.
So did she know, did Maxine know anything about his past and what he'd been...
I'm not entirely sure because it doesn't really...
They're not really going into that.
None of the information really allude to that.
Right.
So I don't know if that was him just telling her for the first time that he'd been falsely accused, or if he was just saying, because I had been... that again, so I'm not sure. It didn't really allude to it, so I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But she obviously does know now whether she knew before or not. So basically, she had therefore agreed to concoct a story to support his version of events.
Okay.
So, after being informed of the discovery of the girls' bodies and the evidence pointing to Huntley's guilt, Carr burst into tears, shouting, quote, "No, he can't. It can't have been. It can't have been. No, he can't have been. It can't have been. He hasn't done it." And initially, Carr did believe he was innocent.
Right, okay.
So I think that's why she'd obviously to do the...
Well, I mean, who wants to believe that their partner has done something like that?
Well, exactly. But I'm pretty sure after she'd probably seen them in the car, that wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. But before she'd
thought, yeah.
Yeah, she had agreed.
That's understandable.
Exactly. So... At about approximately 12:30 on the 17th of August, a 48-year-old gamekeeper named Keith Pryor actually discovered the bodies of both the girls.
God.
They were lying side by side in a 5 foot deep ditch. Mm-hmm. And that was more than 10 miles east of where they lived, basically.
Oh.
Pryor had actually noticed an unpleasant smell 2 days earlier. But he obviously hadn't investigated it at that point, but he had returned with 2 friends and they decided to investigate at that point because they could still smell it there. To be fair, there was a bit more detail about the whole thing, but I didn't really feel necessary to go into the exact, because it talked about the exact road they were on, the stuff the road was made of and that. I mean, I didn't think that was really relevant. Or well, it wasn't relevant, but I didn't think we needed to.
Okay.
I needed to tell you all about it. But by this point, both girls had been missing for 13 days. And both bodies were actually in an advanced stage of decomposition. Is that the right word? Decomposition. Both bodies had been burned in an attempt to destroy forensic evidence. Which,
that's awful.
Yeah, I know. It's not nice. I can't imagine imagine discovering that. Just
it's awful.
That would be awful.
No. I hope to God I never ever come out and discover a body.
No, me neither, totally. So by the 20th of August, investigators had sufficient evidence to charge Huntley with 2 counts of murder. So he was formally charged with these offences while detained for observation at Rampton Secure Hospital. Carr was actually also charged with attempting to pervert the course of justice, and she was further charged with assisting an offender. Which was not so nice. And so after being found guilty, he was sentenced to a minimum of 40 years in prison before even being allowed to apply for
That's
parole.
not bad, actually, considering we're usually complaining about how bad the sentences are. Yeah. So 40 years minimum, that's good.
And he would, so by that point, he would actually be 68 then. But he avoided eligibility for a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment as the passing of the Criminal Justice Act in 2003 had been just one day after his conviction. So
I don't understand that. Do you not understand that either?
No, I don't actually understand that either. I had written it down and I had looked at it and I can't not for the life of me think what it had been relevant to.
Anyway,
we'll move on from that. Maybe I'll look up that and put it in the notes. So Carr, she was sentenced to 3.5 years in jail after being found guilty of conspiring with Huntley to prevent the course of justice. She was actually cleared of 2 counts of assisting an offender in relation to the murder of the girls. So she's actually done her time and she was released in May 2004, and she actually only served 21 months of her sentence, which was half her sentence. She was granted a lifelong, let's say the word, anonymity order.
Right, so her
identity, yeah,
was protected.
Actually, for an interesting fact for you, she's actually only one of 4 former UK prisoners, including Mary Bell, who we covered a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And James Bulger's murderers, Robert Thompson, John Venables. So only those 4 people in the UK have been granted lifelong.
Wow. So she got that, even though she didn't actually murder.
Yeah.
Like the other ones were obviously horrendous murderers.
Yeah.
And she lied and covered up for somebody, which is bad. Like, it is really bad. But she actually gets her identity protected for life.
Yeah. No.
So she's classed among those really bad murderers.
Yeah, basically. Even though, I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, what she did was
bad. But I mean, like, yeah, of course, what she did was wrong because... But she never actually had anything to do with it. She just covered up. So basically what she did was stopped the families from knowing what had happened to their children earlier, if you know what I mean. Like, they... So... Yeah, I find that weird that she got that.
I know. I mean, I guess she probably did get a lot of, abuse and...
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, she's obviously not a very nice person to do that. Yeah. But I'm just thinking, but surely there's plenty of other crimes that have been committed and murders that have been committed when people have maybe lied for other people and stuff and they haven't got that. So
I don't know why. I mean, I didn't find out why.
I just don't really.
But I'm not sure she did. Well,
I don't think she deserves it.
I don't know if any of them really deserve it, to be honest. I mean, for what they've done.
No, but I understand why the other people get it. I mean, but I don't think she needed to get it.
No. And I've just realised, clearly I'm no expert doing this, but I didn't actually tell you that the obviously likely way that the girls were actually murdered was by strangulation. I don't know why I didn't put that in there. I must have totally bypassed that.
So he strangled them?
Yeah, so basically we believe that they were strangled and then he's dumped their bodies.
Right.
But for some reason I did not write that down.
What a monster.
Exactly. And as for Huntley, he is currently serving his sentence at HMP Frankland. And he actually wants to challenge a rule that's stopping him from applying for parole until 2042. So he's looking to apply for parole a lot earlier, but there's a rule that's basically not allowing him to do that. But he wants to challenge that.
He doesn't deserve it. Yeah. He needs to rot in that prison. Like,
yeah, I believe he's had a bit of ill health and that along the way and stuff, but
tough.
Who cares? But yeah, that is the story of
so that's it.
Yeah. Yes, I don't find him very nice and.
Well, an absolute monster. Like, to do that to 2 little girls.
And I guess I don't even know. Again,
was there a reason why?
Yeah, I mean, he's not told why. He's never said why he did it. So we have no idea what made him want to do that, because at the end of the day they were 2 innocent little girls. They just went away for some sweeties, and sadly, because they knew his girlfriend, Maxine, they obviously thought, as you do, let's stop and chat, and I wanted to know if she'd got this job, and he could have just said no, she wasn't there, and they could have went on their way, but for whatever reason he lured them into the house and decided to kill them.
Yeah, that really annoys me though, that when you don't get a reason for it, like, it just... Because, as I said, like, what would make you want to kill 2 innocent little girls,
Well, exactly. I've got no idea.
So,
Exactly.
and I think like the parents deserve that. Like they should get an explanation as to why their children aren't here anymore.
Well, exactly. That's it. I mean, you know, they were 10 years old. I mean, they were just
Two innocent little girls.
They were actually, I've seen the photo, but you know, two beautiful.
They're
little
lovely.
girls.
Yeah, they were beautiful.
You know, and you know they didn't deserve that. I mean, nobody deserves that, but they certainly didn't deserve that. And I mean, I remember when I was little, you know, I'd go up, you know, along the shops with my friends at that age, the sweet shops to get sweeties and that sort of thing.
And you would say hello to people, like, if you know them. Like, I mean, not... You don't have to necessarily know them very well just to say hello in passing. And
well, that's it, you know. They probably wouldn't have thought anything of it. Because,
yeah.
You know, like, you like to talk to your... Maybe if you see a teacher or something, you know.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hi, miss, or, you know, whatever. So they, you know, they probably thought nothing of it. And sadly, it was, you know...
That's a horrible one, that one.
Yeah, I know, I didn't like that one. But I felt like I wanted to do it because it was just one that had stuck in my mind from when I was younger. And I thought, you know, it'd be a good one to cover. But yeah... Certainly wasn't nice.
Oh well,
so.
Well done on your first one.
Yeah.
You're done.
First lot of sodas were now.
Yeah, our first lot of sodas.
Back to you next week though.
Okay, I'll see what I can find for next week.
Yeah, but
so if you want to follow us on Twitter or Instagram,
we are crime_divers_pod.
And if you want to join our Facebook group,
we are the Crime Divers Podcast.
And if you want to drop us an email,
we are crime_divers_pod@outlook.com.
Well done.
I'm getting the hang of this eventually.
Okay, right, we'll be back next week.
See you later.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.